A very good afternoon to all of you. Hi, and a warm welcome to all our viewers who have joined us in the show. Welcome to the YouTube channel Skepter. I am your host, Dr. Mani Iyer, and I request every one of you to please subscribe to this channel, like this video podcast, and share it with all your friends and relatives. This will go in a long way in supporting them. Thank you very much. All right, let's begin. Today joining us is Miss Varshini Mariaji. Welcome to the show, Miss Varshini Mariaji. How are you doing? Hello, Ji.
I'm well, Maniji. How are you? How is
Fine, thank
everyone?
you. Fine, thank you. So, good evening, everyone.
Yes.
When we hear about Gen Z protesting, whether it's against grading systems, the lack of mental support, outdated curricula, or restriction on campus freedoms, the conversation often sounds familiar. They are too sensitive, they are entitled, they are always protesting something. But what if we are asking the wrong question? Instead of asking, why are they so difficult, perhaps we should ask, what are they trying to communicate? And today's session is about looking beyond the protest itself and understanding the psychology behind it. When we understand why young people respond the way they do, we can move from conflict to conversation. So, to discuss this further, I hand it over to our guest, Ms. Varshini Mariaji. Over to you, Mariaji. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Maniji. So, welcome everyone. Before we start, I want to make sure that something is really clear. So, this is not a session about whether Gen Z's protests are right or wrong, or whether the education system deserves the criticism that it's getting. This is a conversation for another day, where we are here to unpack the psychology underneath it as to why this generation is choosing to protest, walk out, post, organize, and speak up about education the way they are. And what does that tell about their inner world? So, if you're a parent watching it, or your child gets vocal about things you haven't questioned at their age, a teacher noticing more pushback in your classroom, or a counselor with the students who have felt unheard, this particular session is for you. So, every generation has been criticized in schools due to their batch or different other certain other aspects. But what's different now is the visibility, the speed of organizing, and the fact that this generation grew up with a language for their own psychology. They can name burnout, anxiety, and validate their emotions in ways that the parents' generation couldn't do so. So I'll just quickly share my screen so we can take a look at uh, how we go accordingly. So Maniji, can you give me the access to share?
Yeah, you're given.
All right, Maniji, thank you so much. I'm just quickly sharing the screen. Uh, yeah. Kindly let me know if it's visible.
Yeah, it's visible. It's starting to share.
Okay.
Not yet. Yeah, just got it.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that confirmation. So, talking about the entire study and the education system and about this new generation of Gen Zs, we also look into a case study of Sonam Wangchuk and psychology of the youth protests that happened really recent. So, in the 2026 education reform advocate Sonam Wangchuk publicly supported the student-led movement in Ladakh. So it was against the paper leak of the NEET examination that happened. He did do the hunger strike with the support of the CJP. So rather than assuming leadership here, Wangchuk intentionally allowed the students to remain the face of the movement while lending his credibility, right? He lended his credibility in have their front. Okay, and he did influence to amplify the concerns that was really important. This approach provides an important psychological example of how adults can support young people's advocacy without overshadowing their voices. So, from the perspective of identity development, as Eric Erikson has shared, so, from this particular perspective of one of the famous psychologists, Erik Erikson, the students' decision to reclaim the name of CJP reflected a process of identity formation, transforming a derogatory label into a symbol of resilience, unity, and resistance. So instead of accepting the identities imposed on them, right? They did actively defend and define themselves in this particular movement. So, a few questions that people might get asked are who are they? Why are they voicing out? Something that we haven't done in their generation or at their age. Why is these things bothering them? But it actually is a concern for them. And they want to voice it out. So coming back to Sonam Wangchuk. So Wangchuk respected this emerging identity by supporting their cause without attempting to reshape it according to his own vision. So this particular protest was rooted in a clear issue of fairness, the alleged examination paper, and with concerns of moral development theory, which we will definitely look into in the upcoming minutes of this video. Rather than expressing value of dissatisfaction, the students challenged a specific violation of merit and equal opportunity, making their protest morally compelling and easier for the public to understand. So Wangchuk's support reinforced the legitimacy of these concerns, and it also did demonstrate how trusted adults can validate young people's moral reasoning. So, moral reasoning is also something which we will look into while encouraging their peaceful civic engagement. So, every adult can just support the teenager or the youth of this generation by just being of support rather than voicing or feel seen and heard. So his hunger strike also strengthened the collective efficacy, which we will talk about. The shared belief that people can work together to create meaningful change. So all these things apart, at the same time, what we are trying to understand through the study is it illustrates a key message for parents, teachers, counselors, psychologists, and all the adults of the other generations. So, when we adults respond to the youth advocacy with curiosity, respect, and partnership rather than control, they foster trust, strengthen their communication with us, and they create a space for meaningful dialogue. They can talk to you like another adult because they trust you, right? So, taking all these things, let's look into the upcoming psychological perspectives of how this movement led. So, identity formation about Erik Erikson. Adolescents and their emerging adulthood are organized around the psychological task of identity versus role formation. So, when their role is formed, there would be certain confusion that happens. Young people are actively asking, who am I apart from what my family and school have told me we are? And it should be completely different from what they are labeled in school or how their family sees them. Okay, so now when we're talking about something structurally, school is just a single institution where a young person has had at least a choice over. They didn't choose the curriculum, the teachers, the exam pattern, or often even the subjects. But protesting here stood a great level of their own voice and their authenticity that was viewed by so many people. So, when we're talking about identity formation, they understood that they have their own voice and they can voice out towards something that they don't really agree with, right? Moving on to the next thing, which is moral development by Lawrence Kohlberg and fairness. So, when we're talking about moral development here, adolescents move into more principled, rule questioning, moral reasoning, and evaluating. Not just this is the rule and I will follow it. They would try to question, is this rule fair? Does it serve everyone around me? So, education systems that were previously accepted by other generations get reevaluated against the same by our emerging adults, the young adults, the youth of this generation. And when we're talking about a grading curve that once felt normal, now feels punitive. A dress code or a disciplinary rule, once obeyed, is now recognized as control without justification. Protest becomes the behavioral expression of a moral judgment they have now newly developed the capacity to make. So, in this way, they start questioning, and it's good. They start questioning, they find their own morals, their own values, ethics, all these things. So, coming to neuroscience and how their voice, their adolescent brain actually works. So, if you have any questions, you can always let me know and we can stop and discuss that, Maniji. So, I would wait for a minute and then
Yeah,
we can
just
move
one
on.
question maybe. Why does Gen Z seem more outspoken than the previous generations?
Exactly. So, when they are looking to question, when they are questioning a particular aspect or a situation that doesn't go right, or an order which was okay accepted in the past, now they have enough factual information, they also have enough information to back up their response to agreeing with it or not. And they understood, as we discussed with Eric Erickson's law theory, they understood that if they want to be their authentic selves, they can be that. And that has nothing to do with the fact that will prove them wrong. They are an individual of their own, and it's their right to make their choice. So I think it answers your question, Maniji.
Thank you so much. Please proceed.
Yeah, sure, Manoj. So now talking about neurodevelopment and the adolescent brain. So adolescence is marked by heightened reward sensitivity to social belonging and status, alongside a still maturing capacity for a long range risk assessment. So speaking up in groups carries a very strong social message, and their visibility, their solidarity, the identity formation, and even when all these things come together, it gives them who they actually are as a person. And when we're talking about all these things put together, when they stand for each other, and our other generations of adults support them, they feel valued and they want to trust them to be open to sharing whatever information they have or standing with their own voice. So, this particular thing is not reckless. It's the brain which is wired to prioritize a social meaning, okay, during this particular stage. So, just a small thing when we're talking about social identity. Let's watch a video. I hope it's changing right now, it's transitioning. And Maniji, please let me know if the video, the thumbnail is visible to you, then I will start the
Yes,
video.
yes, it's visible.
All right, thank you. So let's watch a video on social identity theory and we'll go deep into it later. Yeah, so that would be it for the video. And let us now work upon how social identity theory is actually connected to what we are talking group membership, as seen in the video. Students demanding better education becomes an in-group identity, one that offers belonging, shared purpose, and a clear us, we. That is what they stand for. They want to be seen, they want to be heard, right? Versus them actually questioning the system or the authority. They want to make sure that their voice is actually heard by everyone around them. And this in group identity is often more emotionally organizing for the young person or the adolescent than the single grievance. So, without them standing alone here, making sure that they form a group and they come together there is unity also that stems from it. So, with that being said, let's move on to the next concept, which is collective efficacy. I will exchange. Yeah. So, collective efficacy, when individually a student really believes they struggle with a specific, what's it, creating unity or something like that. That's where we would look into a single complaint will change a grading policy or a entire collective curriculum. So this collective action changes a perceived odd, a felt sense that if enough of us act together, something will improve. So what we're looking at here is they're not actually questioning the entire system. They are talking about an improvement in the education system. And this is the same psychological mechanism behind any successful social movement. This is legitimate and not politics. So collective efficacy is protective against helplessness. So none of this means that the movement is psychology or it isn't also about something being real. It means that these adolescents or the youth pull together to join and stay, and they keep showing up as powered by some of the most fundamental human needs that we have, the right to include, to belong, to matter, and to believe that their voice can change something, can improve something. So that's worth respecting, and that's worth trusting them that they have their own voice and their authenticity. So let's look into three practical conversation scripts as to how you can support the youth or the adolescents of the Gen Zs and Gen Z Alpha, all these things. So when we're talking about the first script or the first way in which you can try to bond with them, you can say that you're not completely agreeing with the viewpoint that they have, but you just want to understand what the particular issue means to you. So that would be like a starter where they will unravel their hope and tell you. They will definitely tell you if you ask them, but in the right way, without judgment. Another script that you can actually try here is that you see that there's something which is very important to them, and you just ask them, let's try to understand the concern first before we discuss the possible outcomes or the solutions. The concern as to why they want to do it rather than what are they getting out of it. So you'll understand where they're actually coming from. And another way in which every individual can come up with trying to understand them much better would be like it sounds like this issue represents something much bigger for you. So help me understand what this protest is protecting or what is your expression about it. So with that being said, you can get to know the youth of this generation, you can get to know the adolescents as to what they're actually thinking, what are their viewpoints on certain aspects. And you will be able to bond with them or at least understand why they are expressive and why they want to feel or see and heard. So, with that, I am so happy to bring it to a close. And Maniji, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, maybe one question. So, yeah, students seem to
Sure.
be protesting. So, I mean, they could be also that they could have some mental health concerns. If that is so, how do we differentiate, between the healthy protest and mental health concern?
Okay, that's a really nice question. So, a healthy protest is usually purposeful, organized, and focused on creating a change. That's what we spoke about improvement. while the individual continues to function in their daily life. However, a mental health concern might be or might present when there is persistent hopelessness, social withdrawal, severe emotional distress, or a decline in their academic, social, or personal functioning. The key to assess a person's overall well being is not just their participation in a protest. So you have to look into their daily life. Yeah.
Thank you, Vaishnaji. Please
Thank you,
go ahead.
Maniji. Do you have any other questions?
Um, yeah, maybe one more. See, if we are validating the students' feelings, and if we validate and say, yes, they have a right to protest and all that, does it not encourage defiance?
Okay. I would like to tell you that it's a no. Validation means acknowledging that someone's emotions make sense in their experience. It does not mean that agreeing with every action that they do. So, research shows that people are more open to discussion and problem solving when they feel heard. Validation builds trust. That's something that I was also stressing upon. It doesn't come when you remove accountability. So, let's work on building trust with the generation. Yeah. Any more
Okay,
questions, Ji?
we look at that. Yeah, maybe one should look at that. So, what do you think parents and teachers should do when a young person strongly disagrees with them?
So, instead of reacting immediately, first notice their emotions behind their behavior and understand by asking open ended questions such as, can you help me understand your perspective? To get to know why they are behaving or why their behavior is sounding a little different from the regular days. Something might be bothering them, right? So, by noticing, understanding, and responding to them, validating their feelings first, then discussing their expectations. This particular approach will reduce any kind of defensiveness and it also encourage dialogue. So they will trust you to open up to you much better than completely shutting down or avoiding altogether.
Okay, thank you so much. Vaishnaji, please go ahead.
Yes, Jim. Yes, Sri. So, as we have come to the close, I'd like to leave you with one final thought. So, when young people protest, adults often hear the word opposition or some kind of a threat which is coming in. Behind every slogan is a need, behind every disagreement is a story, and behind every generation is a developmental journey shaped by its social, cultural, and emotional context. So, if we respond with curiosity instead of certainty and connection instead of correction, we create a space for a genuine dialogue and perhaps even a meaningful change. So I hope you leave not only with better understanding of the Gen Zs, but with ways to build stronger conversations with young people in your life. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I have a couple of more questions. One is in
Sure.
the days, nowadays it's all, social media is very much prevalent. And so, what role does social media play in such protests?
So social media actually allows young people to share their experiences, organize quickly, and feel connected to others with similar concerns. So it can empower a collective action. Collective efficacy comes into play here. So this can be increased awareness, but it can also amplify misinformation, emotional intensity, and peer pressure. Like if one person wants to pursue something towards the protest being said here, and if their peer doesn't want to, they might not want to, or vice versa. So helping students think critically. The critical kind of a thinking has to play a huge part here about what they consume online is very, very important by every parent, every teacher, and every sibling too. Yes, yes, Steve.
So another maybe that Gen Z, we see the Gen Z students focus very strongly on fairness and inclusion. So why do they do? Why is that?
So many members of the Gen Zs have grown up during the time of increased discussions about equality, diversity, mental health. So, through the lens of moral development, as we saw through Lawrence Kohlberg, there are more instances where they are more likely to evaluate policies basis the fairness, the inclusion, and the social justice. So their questions often reflect on evolving moral reasoning rather than a rejection of the authority itself. They're just trying to reason as to why this particular policy exists. Are we included? And does it benefit us for this particular time rather than going against the government or the justice? They're trying to reason.
So finally, if there's one thing adults should remember about these Gen Z protests, what do you think that has to be?
All right. So when we're talking about something that adults should take away from this particular protest, it's like don't ask why they are protesting. Ask them what are they trying to communicate. So behind most protests, there is a need to be heard, respected, and treated fairly. When adults respond with curiosity rather with a sense of judgment or correction, they create more opportunities for trust, meaningful conversations, and a positive change. Yes, true.
Yeah, that's about all. Thank you very much, Varshini for giving us a different kind of an insight about the Gen Z's protest and different way of looking at it. So, thank you very much. We appreciate your deep insights on the subject, and definitely I would also like to thank you very much for having come today and you know spend time with us on this subject. And so, looking forward to more such shows from you. And we'll see you soon in another show. Until then, thank you very much. Have a great day.